Meeting to order.
Animals in the Civic Center. Animals.
Animals,
Yeah.
including deer. All animals in Civic Center. Any other additions this evening?
Yes, Your Worship, municipal budget public consultation.
Any other additions this evening? I would ask council to approve the agenda as presented with the two additions.
Move to approve as amended.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, the agenda is approved. We do not have any gallery presentations this evening.
There's no gallery presentation.
In terms of acknowledgements, first and foremost, Happy New Year, everyone. This is our first 2023 council meeting. Did council want to offer any other acknowledgements this evening?
I have one.
Go ahead, Councilor Point.
I'd like to acknowledge the passing of Jimmy Hickey. Jimmy's a former employee of the town of Port Hawkesbury. Jimmy passed away on January 3rd. And I'd ask council to have a moment of silence for Jimmy, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Point. Any other acknowledgements this evening? Okay, we'll move on to approval of council minutes from December 20th, 2022. I would call now for any errors or omissions. Okay, hearing none, I would ask if there's any business arising from the minutes.
Just, Your Worship, through you.
Sure, Deputy Mayor, over to you.
Just a letter for Roy Stern. Was that ever, we were looking for one of the committees he was on, or something we were looking for. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
It was an excellent letter as well. It's very well written. Thank you, Melissa. And also for Shirley McNamara. That letter was also drafted and very well. Any other business arising? Okay, we'll move on to council committee reports.
Your Worship, we had a combined committee of whole and public meeting in December. So the issues from committee of whole were dealt with in December. So there's no items to consider at this meeting.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead. You're good? Okay, so we'll move on then. We do not have any motions from our in camera, so we will continue on with agenda item 10, which is council reports on assigned committees. And I know there's probably not a whole lot to report. I did submit for council consideration a report this evening. I won't go through it, but if council has any questions on any of those items, I reported on some from December and some from January. Feel free to reach out anytime, happy to provide more information, but we will go around just because I know there is probably a few things to report. Deputy Mayor, do you want to start with you?
Not sure what's up, Mark, this.
Oh, first our Deputy Mayor, always.
Just have to report, Your Worship, on the 10th, we had a police advisory committee meeting. Mr. McCarter was present at that meeting. And today we had our Lander Lake Utility Board meeting. Mr. McCarter also was at that.
Okay.
That's all from my.
Over to you, Councilor McCrory.
Yes, Your Worship, on January 10th, I had the opportunity to take part in a virtual meeting. You participated as well for the Strait of Canso Offshore Wind Task Force. And it's really impressive to see what that group is working at and working towards. So that was my first opportunity to take part.
I'm really glad to have you there, Blaine. Okay, any other?
No, that's it, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Point?
On January 12th, Councilor McIver and I were at Eastern District Planning Commission meeting. And on January 9th and 16th, most of us were present for two funding announcements here at the Civic Center, one for Sturt Area Transit and the other is the ICIP project.
Thank you. And I feel like the deputy mayor already.
Ditto.
Is there any other ones that you would like to report on? I know the three of you took place in the ICIP announcement.
Yes. No, our local committees are being formed hopefully tonight, and we'll move on from there.
Fantastic.
Your
So,
Worship, just
yeah,
one
go
thing
ahead,
about-
absolutely.
It was
go
brought
ahead.
up actually at our police advisory committee meeting, and I know historically we used to, not just for council members that are on the committee, but all council members should have the opportunity to ask questions to the police and or any discussion or concerns they have. I think going forward, if we could have, I think we mentioned this before, if we could have Staff Sergeant Dave
David Moore.
Moran who attends our meetings, our advisory meetings, and he's more than willing to come. He mentioned that to us. I know he's going to Mulgraves, and I think maybe even Inverness too, because they had some issues with ATVs when they went to brightness. But anyway, he said he'd be more than happy to come, and I think it's
I think it's a great
a
idea.
great idea. We can just,
We're very fortunate that we didn't have anything to report, but as the deputy mayor says, if councilors are hearing anything from the public, they should bring it to us
That's good.
so we can take it to that
I
meeting.
know we have in the past
Yes.
passed forward some
Yes.
items like complaints from citizens, particularly around speeding on town streets. It's a big one. So I guess if council's open, we could potentially invite Staff Sergeant David Moore into either February or March meeting, just to come and give us a little report. And that way we can provide a little bit of feedback to him in terms of what we're hearing from citizens and observing ourselves. Okay, we'll make a note of that. Anything else for committee reports? Okay, we'll move on to CEO reports. Over to you, Terry.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Again, because this is a combined committee, I'll do a very short summary. You received the detailed reports from all of our department heads. They put a lot of work into that, and there's a lot of information there. And just want to express our appreciation for that. So just hit on a very few things. So you've seen the update on the projects, including the food bank, summer students, electric vehicle accessibility. We have a new Zamboni, which is very exciting on the property side and for everybody in town, really. It's always a big deal when we get a new machine like this. So, thank council for the support on this and the province of Nova Scotia. So, food bank is going to make a big change on Granville Street. We've had a lot of compliments on the look of that building. That's moving forward a little bit. There's been some material delay, but that's really coming along. And I cannot talk enough about how appreciative the volunteers at that food bank are. And it's wonderful to be able to do something with them. From the marketing, recreation, tourism, from Michelle, you've seen the flyer. It looks, it's a very busy flyer, which says something about the department. Like there's just tons of stuff happening here. We're very proud of that, to be able to offer the amount and the quality of programming that we do. And so I'd be here half the night if I was to go through that. So we wouldn't do that. Here we go. I asked for a picture of the first night celebration, our New Year's celebration. Just so impressed by that. by the turnout that we got, not just from Port Hawkesbury, but from people from all around the region. And it's just a class event, great for kids, great for the grandparents who come out, great for everything. And really wonderful to see the community come together with the fire hall, do fireworks, and just the way that whole thing was presented. So just wanted to mention that. Finance, Aaron's going to talk about assessment. We have shared IT project that's a real success story where municipalities work together and hire common resources, and unbelievable increase in service level that we've had since we've gotten into this partnership. It's really great. Asset retirement obligations, that's been indicated in Landry Lake, some of the work that we've been talking about. So I can't recall, Aaron, if we have assessment role on there, or we're going to, okay, here we go. So I'm gonna hand it over to Aaron to talk about a little bit of good news. The town of Port Hawkesbury Historical Assessment.
Yay. Thank you, Your Worship. I thought Terry was going to start getting into PSAB accounting standards, because he was director of finance in this role.
You missed that. You missed that.
I did.
So just wanted to give an update, as I mentioned in my report, on the assessment. So we did get our new 2023 roll, assessment roll, which comes out in December. Which will be reflected in our upcoming budget season, so for our 2023-24 fiscal year. So I'm sure you've read, I guess our historical trends have been decline in assessment, but this year we're seeing some growth, which is consistent with the national trend and obviously provincial trend, and I'm sure you've seen some information on that in the news, and you've probably been hearing from constituents maybe about questions about their assessments. So just to give you kind of some history on our trends. So this is the first year we've seen some more significant growth, I guess, in our residential and commercial assessments. So over the last 10 years, so a 10-year growth in our residential assessment is 15%. So on average about 1.5% per year, but we're seeing that primarily in the last couple of years. So assessment growth over 10 years has been nominal, but we have seen the majority of that growth in the last couple of years, and in particular this year. Commercial growth, we have seen, what's positive is that we have seen a substantial 1-year increase in our commercial assessment, but again, if you compare it back to where we were at in 2014, we're still 1% lower in assessment for commercial than we were in 2014. So no real pickup there. We're just basically getting back to where we were in that year. Resource, which is a very small portion of our assessment, but we've seen a decline of 16% in that assessment. So just graphically on the next slide, you'll see the growth presented. So basically you're seeing our commercial kind of coming back to where it was at the 2014 level. On the bottom graph, you're seeing basically flat growth in our residential assessment with a slight increase in last fiscal year and a healthy increase, I'd say, in the current year or the upcoming budget year. So what that means around revenue, which is how I like to equate assessment. So we're seeing an 8.8% increase in our residential assessment over last year, which equates to close to $240,000 in new revenue. Commercial, we're seeing a 7% increase in year-over-year assessment, which equates to about $150,000. Resource, small decline over last year, but overall just under $400,000 in revenue growth from increased assessments. I think you may have seen, and on the next slide, you'll see the Cape Breton assessment trends. And we're at the bottom of the growth in Cape Breton, probably consistent with the province, but we're still happy with an increase versus a decrease, which is a kind of a good news story for us from a budget perspective. But again, you'll see Inverness County was the leader with a 15% increase. Now, this is an average assessment increase, so the numbers I reported were on specific assessments, so residential, commercial. This number here is an average assessment of all of the assessments together, so that includes your exempt properties as well. So that's where PDSC would have, these numbers came from a news article in CBC. And just, again, nice to see some growth. Maybe the next slide there, Terry, if you don't mind. Really, it's positive, but again, we just have to kind of keep in mind that these are based on 2021 sales values. That's PBSC uses a year behind, I guess, when they're looking at sales. So they're analyzing those sales and comparing that to your community, and then determining what the market increase is in your communities. So we know that the market has cooled in 2022, so this should impact our upcoming annual assessments because property sales, I think, reported through MLS were about 15% lower in 2022 than they were in 2021. So that will impact future years or next year's roll. And just to bring to your attention that last year we did balance our budget, but that was based on taking $155,000 from reserve. So close to half of the revenue growth from this year's assessment growth is already committed if we maintain those expenses. And obviously there's typically increases in expenses when we look at power, when we look at education, when we look at policing, all our large significant expenses. This growth is not specific to town of Port Hawkesbury alone. It's a provincial, national trend. We should be encouraged, I think, in the growth in commercial assessments. That's kind of where it's been on the decline for so long here. That 1 year kind of significant pickup is something that I'm encouraged by, and I think we should be encouraged by, and hopefully we'll continue to see that in future assessment roles. But and again, obviously, I'm sure, and as you can tell your constituents, there's an appeal process with PDSC. You can appeal. There's a form on the back of your assessment notice. We could see, based on individuals maybe not as encouraged by the growth in their assessments as we may be. There will be an appeal process, and we will understand the number of accounts and the value of accounts probably in end of February. So we'll keep an eye on those appeals. I'm happy to answer any questions from council.
Any questions for Erin at this time?
No.
Thank you so much, Erin.
Thank you.
Terry, do you have anything left from?
No,
your
excellent
report?
presentation. Thank you, Erin. That was a really good one.
So you will have all noted in your agenda packages just a brief correspondence. It's Invest Nova Scotia, the former NSBI. So it's basically just speaking on the name change. Just for your information, this evening we do not have any proclamations or resolutions.
Your worship, question.
Yeah.
I don't think we had just a review of the engineering public works.
I didn't realize you were asking if I was finished. That was my mistake.
Oh, okay. No.
So we still have engineering and public works.
Okay,
I'll just do a couple of highlights,
Yeah, no, you go ahead. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Terry.
if that's okay.
That's totally okay.
So yeah, just again, another one of a good report by Jason highlighting some issues. Just we continue to work on water main breaks and always appreciative of the work that occurs, and usually in very adverse conditions. So anyway, that's good. We got our lighting kit up and running. That was an issue for a little while. It's not fun working in the dark or trying to work off sort of substandard conditions. It's not safe. So that's great. Very excited about an announcement this week that's been really covered well. ICIP project that we've been planning for about 5 years. That's going to make a substantial difference in our water system and take us into the future with respect to not only improvements in the infrastructure itself, but improvements in infrastructure that's going to really improve the safe working environment for our staff, which is probably, from my perspective, one of the most important parts of it. But we're going to have a shiny new water tower, and we're going to get rid of an old one too, so that's kind of nice. New truck. So this recommendation from Jason, actually, that we change sort of our mindset on trucks, and we have a new 550 truck, which is ideally set up to do the type of work that we have. Very excited about that. We took possession just after Christmas. And that's it, Your Worship. Thank you.
All right. So we have any questions for Terry with regard to Public Works? Or any of the other items covered in the CAO reports?
Just one comment
Sure.
through you. The celebrations on New Year's Eve. I was here for it, and to hear the people from Antigonish, Port Hood, Mabou, even Almadam saying they wish they had this in their community, the town really deserves a pat in the back for what we put on there. There was people from all over the place, and they were more than pleased with what was here.
Fantastic. That's great feedback, Jason. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So we already covered correspondence, no proclamations, no resolutions this evening. So now on to other business. We have council expenses. Terry, if you don't mind reviewing that one.
Yes, Your Worship. So we had another revision for November, and this happens when we get an invoice in after the fact. So we still want to put it on in the correct month. So small revision in November with an added invoice there, a total of $6,878 for the month of November. The month of December, of course, shorter month and not a lot of conferences and things. So we had a total of $225 in expenses for the month of December. Again, for media and others, we post our council expenses for councilors and the CAO on a monthly basis, and is available for review by the public. This is just just an indication that we've gone through it, and these are the numbers, and they're posted.
Thank you so much, Terry. Our next item under other business is flag raising approval. So just for council consideration, what's noted in this document, and thank you, Terry, for preparing this. These are our typical annual asks for flags. And we thought rather than coming to you every single time and asking for motions individually for each of these flag raisings, we thought that we would add this as a flag raising policy. If we do have requests that aren't within those that we have noted, of course, we will come to council with that request. So what is the wishes of council with regard to the, and of course, you will note that there are some items or dates that require raising the Mi'kmaq flag. They will be redundant when we come up with a plan to raise the Mi'kmaq flag permanently. So we won't need to have those noted. We'll just amend that once we do have a plan around when we want to raise that flag permanently. And I've already just had some informal conversations with Jason. If council is okay with it, perhaps we can bring a plan forward maybe next month or the following month around what we'd like in terms of a ceremony or formality in terms of raising the Mi'kmaq flag on the 4th flagpole for the first time and leaving that up permanently. So if council's okay with it, maybe we'll come up with a plan and bring it forward to council for consideration.
Sure.
Okay, and what is your wishes in terms of having this flag policy?
Motion moved.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
Second, Your Worship.
Okay, any discussion on the motion?
Question.
The question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is approved. The next item is Council Advisory Committee citizen appointments. Okay, Terry, did you want to take us through the appointments, or what does council want Terry to review these individually?
I think we haven't read them.
All right. So I guess if you are prepared to ratify the appointments. Or if there's any discussion, we'll put a motion on the floor so it can be discussed.
I'll move the motion.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you. So we have a motion currently on the floor. We have several local committees. Some of these local committees have returning committee membership and some new members that have expressed an interest. We did have kind of advertisements out asking citizens who may have interest in each of our different local town committees. Unfortunately, we didn't get any responses for beautification. So we may have to cast the net at some future date or reconsider that committee. Maybe we want to fold that into another committee like we did combining housing and economic development. But that could be, I guess, a conversation we can have at a future time. I guess I'll open up the floor if there are any questions.
Sure. Worship.
Okay, over to you.
With the committees, I guess at the first meeting, we go through the terms of reference.
Correct.
Maybe we should meet with Terry to go over the terms, so we're sure exactly what council wants from the advisory committees.
Absolutely, that's a great idea. And we do have a tentative meeting with the new committee members earmarked for the end of the month. And I believe that date works pretty well for all of council. And as soon as this is ratified tomorrow, I'll work with Melissa to make sure that we get invitations out. And I'll also poll council to check in for availability so we can do precisely as you suggested, just make sure we review the terms of reference to reflect against the wishes of council. And also just to prepare in advance of meeting with the returning and new committee members so that we can give a little bit of a high level vision in terms of like to see each of our local committees tackling, I guess, over the next 2 years. Any other questions or comments? If you're ready, you can call the question.
What is the, what's the motion, Your Worship? Can somebody read the motion back? What the motion is?
The motion would be to accept or approve the committee members as presented to council.
Question.
Okay, question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Contrary minded?
Nay.
I'm sorry, Blaine, I didn't catch your vote.
Nay.
Okay, so we have 3 yeses and 2 nays, and the motion is approved. Okay, we'll move now to our service renest request that has come forward to council. And I know, and I'm sure all of you can attest to a gap that has existed in our community. I know at some points different service organizations have kind of taken up the torch of holding used furniture to benefit families in need, and then being able to redistribute depending on that need. There's no one formally doing that, and the nearest Value Village is like in CBRM, and there is a group that have come together to propose this new service called Renest, and they are wanting to service the town of Hawkesbury, Inverness County, and the municipality of the county of Richmond. And their ask to council this evening is if we would consider providing $100 a month for 6 months. The same request will be going forward to Inverness Council and also Richmond County Council. So I guess if you want to make the motion, then we can have.
No, I want to make a comment. I have to declare conflict. I'm on the board.
Oh, okay. No problem. But if we want to discuss this, we can have a motion on the floor.
I make the motion to
Okay.
support this request.
Sure. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion currently on the floor, and I would open up the floor for any questions or debates or concerns or comments.
On the question, Your Worship, they're looking for $100 a month for 6 months.
Yeah, total of $600.
And is that contingent with Richmond coming on board or Inverness?
If you want to make a contingent on that being matched, that's your prerogative for sure.
I'm just, if that's their ask from each
It's only
municipality,
going to work if all three
it's all only going to
municipalities.
work with all three.
Right.
Yes, that would be, I don't want to give away free money.
Gotcha. Any other comments or questions? So the support would be contingent on Inverness and Richmond County support, just for council's information. Any other comments or concerns or debate?
No, just to make a comment, I think it's an
Sure.
extremely worthwhile project, and
Agreed.
the individuals that they've identified as being able to take advantage of this service, I mean, it's sure that very much appreciate this being in place going forward. So
Absolutely.
strongly support.
Fantastic. And I know you declare conflict on the vote, Jason, but is there any other information you'd like to offer as a member on the board?
No, I think I'll leave it the way it is for now.
Sure. That's the wish of the
Question.
council. Thank you. The question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is approved and contingent, of course, on support coming forward. They would need, I guess, all of those funds from all three municipalities to see the commencement of their service. Okay, so we will move on now to our year in review. It is a long document, so I'm just going to touch on just some quick highlights and just any media that's present. If you do not have it, hopefully you have it in the agenda packages, but if not, I'm happy to make that available to you all. You too, Jake, online, and don't know if we have any other reporters online. So, and I'll just review some highlights and then I'll ask council as well if there's anything you would like to add that's notable from 2023. You know, certainly happy to have you chime in. And before I do a quick review, I'd like to thank Terry and senior staff for contributing some of their highlights in terms of the 2022 accomplishments for the town of Port Hawkesbury, and also to some of council who was able to contribute some information too. So thank you so much. And of course, council's well aware of our our 5 key strategies that we have in terms of strategic directions for the town of Port Hawkesbury. So I'm just going to touch on a little bit of what we have in the document. So of course, active transportation and recreation, you know, just kudos to the 2 committees that do a lot of the heavy lifting with regard to this priority. We have the Port Hawkesbury Accessibility Advisory Committee, and then we have the Parks and Rec Committee. So certainly thank you to both the committee and members for all the work that they've done all year round. Really proud to have a 3-year municipal accessibility document that we can follow along with. And also really proud of all of the accessibility work that we've been able to achieve in 2022. I think it's significant. So, you know, certainly Gordy gives our accessibility committee updates when we have the opportunity to meet, and it's very visible around town with the installation of AT trails, and just positive feedback from citizens as well. In terms of our housing strategy, certainly I know many of us had the opportunity to take part in the community consultation with New Dawn Enterprises. The work that we're doing in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, I think, is tremendous. At the end of the day, we're going to come out with a really powerful document that will help lead the charge in terms of what the town can do to move the needle on housing, and also hopefully looking at the establishment of a not-for-profit arm that can also meet some of the needs of the gaps that we currently have with regard to housing, particularly affordable and accessible housing. So that's really encouraging. And then over to waterfront development. I could have Mark do this one if you like. Waterfront development has been certainly exciting. Certainly waterfront development in the overall plan is going to take a phased approach. But some of the notable things that we've been able to achieve in 2022, just that fantastic new accessible boardwalk is just incredible, getting amazing feedback from citizens with regard to how easy it is to use that facility that we have down at the waterfront. Also, as Sunset Park is coming together, that's also very visible changes that we're getting wonderful compliments from citizens, and really exciting to see how the waterfront will continue to develop into 2023. And of course, many thanks to our town staff, but also the Port Hawkesbury Waterfront Development Advisory Group as well. They do a lot of work. And then we have our healthcare professional recruitment and retention. And the bulk of that work is done in collaboration with Richmond County under the Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health group. And lots of wonderful progress being made at that table. And it really is a wonderful example of regional collaboration. And what I have in our review is mainly, I guess, the readily visible benefits directly to the town of Port Hawkesbury. Like, for example, a new position will be starting at the Port Hawkesbury Collaborative Clinic. The tentative start date will be April 2023. Also on the retention side, having the Community of Care Awards Gala is just incredible. We're still getting positive comments from our medical health care staff who took part in that. And they really, really feel appreciated and that we see all the hard work that they're doing. And I think it's just a wonderful thing. On the economic development side of things, as many of you may have noted, we are looking at, of course, our Economic Development Advisory Committee. We are combining that with our Housing Committee so that we can have a hyper-focused push towards promoting the town from a housing development perspective. So we're really excited about that. And we see that there's been wonderful momentum with the Economic Development Group to really kind of dig into the opportunity around offshore wind and green hydrogen. And really that ball has been funded over to our new Strait of Cancel Offshore Wind Task Force. So it's all wonderful items that we've been able to bring forward in 2022. Other key milestones, of course, it's all about streets. It's all about streets and sidewalks. Citizens, want to see that kind of work done on an annual basis. So you'll see in the annual report a list of the roads and roads that have sidewalk infrastructure that have been rehabilitated. Some of it has been milled and paved and patched. So I think it was a very ambitious plan, and kudos to Public Works for all the work that they've been able to achieve. Jason, if you could pass that on to the staff. Just an incredible amount of work. Again, citizens are noticing all of that work, so it's great. And Jason, I know another thing that we all get calls on is the street lights. I don't know if you want to mention, like, it's a really progressive idea in terms of the street light program. You wanted to mention quickly a sentence or two about that? Streetlight policy development, I should say.
Oh, okay.
What is she talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, we put some work into creating a policy last year, which will put some context around when we receive requests for streetlight installations and how we review those requests, and also context around what makes a good candidate for the removal of a light. Those sorts of things. So, yeah, the policy was was well received. We didn't get too many comments back, so
I'll tell you how we know it's working. We're not getting very many calls about streetlights anymore. That's how we know it's working. So thank you. I appreciate that, Jason. And we also know that it's been a very busy front on the Landry Lake side of things as well. Certainly just, looking at, in Landry Lake, of course, is a shared water utility between the town of Port Hawkesbury and the county of Richmond. And I don't know, Terry, if you wanted to make a few comments in terms of just some of the work that's been ongoing.
Sure. So I guess from our perspective, Landry Lake water, it will be the feedstock for green hydrogen, supply the water that's required to make hydrogen. We're working with 3 developers right now. So we've been doing work to ensure that resource is available to the developers, so that this very exciting industry can move forward. And it's been a pleasure being able to try to work with them and try to advance it.
Appreciate that, Terry. And of course, it wasn't all good news. We did have the unfortunate fire at our Public Works building. But I have to say our Public Works crew are certainly managing exceedingly well, considering the duress of no longer having a place to do their work. But certainly in 2023, we're going to be working towards a new Public Works facility. And emergency preparedness, well, I think we will remember Fiona for many years to come. But I will say that emergency preparedness is something that I definitely wanted to mention. We have an incredible amount of brain trust and capability with our Port Hawkesbury Volunteer Fire Department, and certainly with our senior staff. And the response during Fiona was incredible, so I definitely wanted to make note of that. And just quickly, regional collaboration is certainly something that council is really, we know that in order for Port Hawkesbury to grow, and in order for our regional neighbors to grow, we need to be working together. So in terms of regional collaboration, we already mentioned the water utility. We share in the governance of the Alan J. McEachern Airport. We also have the Joint Business Park Commission. We have the Cape Breton Regional Enterprise Network. And Blaine, did you want to mention anything about Straight Area Transit?
Sure, Your Worship. This past year, the Straight Area Transit is governed by a board of representatives from Richmond Municipal Council, Inverness Municipal Council, and the town of Port Hawkesbury, along with the representative from Community Service and Richmond County Literacy Network. Currently, we have 3.5 positions in terms of drivers, a dispatcher, an executive director. Transit was established in 2007, and the first time since its establishment, the board ended up making a decision this year because of the increase in costs and fuel maintenance, that we had to increase the fare from $5 one way to $7.50 one way. We really haven't had any pushback about that fare increase. We do Straight Area Transit is struggling in terms of being able to recruit drivers, but we're not unique. It's the same across the board. There's 23 rural transit in the province, and they're all facing the same challenge. And one of the main issues there that we identify is around salary, and we're hopeful that the province may be down the road looking to address funding so that we can provide for a better salary. And just because of the number of drivers that we have, so we have 3.5, it's a challenge to provide as good a service all the time because of not having the additional drivers. And Richmond County Council has identified that as an issue back in prior to Christmas, and that's an issue that we're going to be working on for 2023 to see what we can do to address their concerns. real good announcement. Last Monday, Mike Kellaway was here along with Alan McMaster to announce funding for new transit vehicles. The federal government's contributed $399,000 and the province of Nova Scotia contributed $99,000. So these are for purchase of 3 new accessible vehicles. And additionally, the federal government and the province did make a contribution, a one-time contribution to offset losses through COVID. And the federal, or the one amount was for 101,000, the other was for 41,000. So we're very, very appreciative as a board to get that sort of support from the federal government and from the province.
We appreciate that. And I would ask also if there's anything that stands out for 2022 that any of council would like to comment on. Okay, perfect. So I guess that is 2022 in review. And I guess just to close, really proud of how progressive and active our council and our senior staff and all of our staff at the town of Port Hawkesbury has been. And in my mind, 2022 has been an incredible success. So that certainly is something to be proud of. So thank you. Thank you to council. Thank you to town staff. All right, so moving on. Is there any questions I should ask council? Okay, so I think the plan is typically we put the review on our website just for the benefit of the citizens of the town in case they would like to read it. And maybe we can just share the link on social media. Okay, so we next have Quad County Whitecap funding request. Gary?
So your worship, in the council package, there was 2 letters included, the request for funding from the Quad County Whitecaps. So there's 2 teams, and so there's the under 13 AAA are hosting the Atlantic Hockey Championships, and they're hosting it here in the Civic Center. A very exciting time. They're asking for us for advertising, and that goes from 1/8 of a page to a full page. What we're suggesting, recommending, is that council consider the purchase of a half-page ad at $500. And I will indicate that we do have money left in our advertising budget that can be used for that. The other requests that we have, and we can consider these separately or together, is for the 2023 provincial hockey championships under 15 AAA, Quad County Whitecaps Female Hockey Association. So this is one is the under 13 Atlantic, this is the under 15 provincial. This tournament is not here, it's being hosted in Antigonish. They also have the same advertising program, and because it's provincial championship, the advertising and the programming is a little bit less, and that goes from 125 to 500. The recommendation for staff is that we support this initiative with advertising half page at $250 for the under 15 provincial. So that's just to summarize, the recommendation from staff is to support this with a half page $500 ad under 13 AAA Atlantic Hockey Championship, and 1/2 page ad in the programming for the provincial hockey championships under 15 AAA.
What is the wish of the council?
I'd like to make a motion, but first I have a question. In terms of 2023 Atlantic Hockey Championship under 13, is that all held in the Civic Center?
Yeah.
If it's held in Port Hawkesbury, it's held in the Civic Center. And how much was the full page?
$1,000.
1,000. I would move that we, since it's being all in Port Hawkesbury, that we support a full page ad at $1,000. We don't get very many Atlantic championships in our area.
I'll second it.
So do we want to do 2 separate motions for each individual lot?
Separate motion.
Okay. So we currently have a motion on the floor for $1,000 ad purchase, a full page. Yeah, a full page purchase at the $1,000 for the Atlantis that'll be hosted here at the Civic Center. Any questions or comments or for debate?
Question?
Okay, the question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is approved. The second motion for the provincials hosted in Antigonish, the town staff recommendation would be a $250 half-page ad. What's the wishes of council?
I do have a question
Sure.
or a comment. When we look at the advertising for the U15 AAA, the game sponsorship is $450. You're announced at the beginning of the game, you're announced at the player of the game, and you're in the program. For an extra $200, I think that's our best bang for our buck. So I would recommend that we take the game sponsorship.
Okay. So we have a staff recommendation and a recommendation from Councillor Hall.
$450.
So for an extra $200, we get a little bit more visibility. Okay, it's up for council.
Second motion.
That's my motion.
Second that, George.
Okay, so we have a motion currently for the provincial Whitecaps tournament hosted in Antigonish to be a game sponsor at $450 would be the cost of that. Is there any questions or comments?
Just one more comment. There's only 12 available, so as long as it's available, we'll take it.
Sure. Do we want to amend that motion and go with half page in the off chance that
Sure.
Okay, did anybody want to make that a amendment?
I would-
Okay, so the amendment is in the case that one of those 12 spots is not available, that we will revert back to the $250 half-page advertising. We have a seconder?
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded. If there's any discussion on the amendment, or you can call the question.
Question.
Okay, question has been called. All those in favor of the amendment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, so we go back to the main motion, which is the $450 game sponsorship. And if there are no slots available, we will go to the $250 half-page advertisement. What is the wishes of council? Any discussion, questions? Question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is approved. So that includes other business. We'll now move on to approved additions. The first item under approved additions is animals in the Civic Center. So I'll hand things over to Councillor O'Coin to give us some information with regard to that.
Thank you, Your Worship. So since the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've had some concerns, we'll call it, with dogs in the Civic Center and in the rink. I sent an email out this weekend, which was responded to, and then staff, member Gordy, called me. He spoke with his staff and kind of said until we can get some direction, we're not going to allow any animals into the Civic Center. So the reason I said animals and not dogs is,
Any animals or does it serve as that?
well, let me get there,
Okay, sorry.
is because if we say dogs, then people can take cats, lizards, snakes. So that's why I went with animals. So I did some research, and right now we do have a sign on the front door saying service animals only. So I'd like to put a motion on the table that we pass that only service and or therapy animals, which are registered and identified to be allowed into the Civic Center, and also with Granville Green, because we have a sign down now on Granville Green with no dogs permitted. We also have a sign at the playground with no dogs permitted. So I think we should take all 3 locations and put it in the same motion.
Should we have staff, I guess, provide some feed, like maybe some research around how we might be able to accommodate that in all 3 locations?
Sure.
And then maybe put it on our February agenda so that we can make sure that we're making an informed decision, and then we have all of our i's dotted and t's crossed, and then we can look at, see what other places, other municipalities are doing, and all of this.
Speak to it. Maybe if you
Gordy,
could get Gordy to speak to it.
Yeah, absolutely, Gordon.
Yeah, sure. Through you, your worship, to council. I did contact 7 other light facilities, problems in New Brunswick. They're really doing the same thing we are.
Okay.
Service animals on one facility, which is the Angus Arena that we will have dogs in, and they don't have to be leased. So, facilities like this that are multi-use, they're not just the old-fashioned arena, where there's a lot more going on than hockey. Nobody's allowing anything but spiritual therapy in it.
Yeah. So you made a good point, Gordy, is that I just wanted to pick up on that some of the facilities that do allow for service animals, that they need to be leashed.
Some of them do
So
recommend it.
Currently, our current signage doesn't have that specified.
No. We do have, the province does have a service dog follow. And it goes so far as to reference the Nova Scotia Human Rights Act also. So the support for service animals is strong across the province. So I think most people that are committed to having a service animal and has it identified, or they know that what they have to do to be able to use that animal whenever and wherever. So they're leased and they're identified.
Right, and I guess another question that comes to mind would be, how do we police that? Like, are we allowed to ask for proof that they are a service or a therapy animal? Is that?
We are allowed, but we have to go by pretty much like, there's not a lot of enforcement available for it. You know, take people at their word. If they have a dog or an animal that's identified as a service or therapy animal, sometimes they have documentation to prove that. Bona fide service animal in Nova Scotia is issued if you apply
It has
for
a tag.
certification, you're issued a card and a tag to the collar. So
Okay.
if they're real certified pet or therapy animal, then they've been certified through the province, and they would have documentation to prove that.
So if council is in agreement, we could have maybe something more formalized brought forward for, I guess, our first February meeting, I guess, and Terry?
Yeah, and I'd just like to say, so I mean, we all know that law overrides policy, and there's law around service animals, and it's not something that we have, that we can decide not to let service animals, and we have to. And anyone who doesn't have a card, yeah, they should have a card, but they can also complain to human rights as well. And so there's a very clear avenue for them. So this is an issue that's progressing right across the country. We're seeing tons of businesses that are open to dogs. So if we go to Dartmouth Crossing, I doubt that there's 2 stores there that don't allow dogs in. Restaurants, same thing. So that's all, it's very much a moving, something that's moving forward. As far as allowing, it's not, we can't not allow service animals in. So, yeah, so any policy around there, we have to be very careful.
Sure. Yeah, please do, go ahead.
Just a comment, I guess, Jay said, and you're talking about therapy animals. If somebody comes in here, I'm not against any of it, obviously. We're specifically talking dogs here, but somebody could come in with a pet rabbit. This is my petting the pet rabbit and saying this is keeping me calm, or say state of better word.
Do you have a therapy rabbit?
I got a cat, therapy cat.
Get your card, get your card. You come and visit me with a cat of my
Do I need a
own.
therapy?
Sorry, I didn't.
Oh, that's all right. But anyway, I guess my point is, where do you draw, do they have to be registered, or do they already mentioned that it's hard to
They're supposed to be, if you want to identify them as a certified
therapy.
therapy or service animal, they you have the opportunity to register. But even if they're not, as Terry mentioned, right in the Service Dog Act, reference to the Human Rights Act. you really can't use them in-
But that's for service, that's for service, yeah, for therapy. I pet frog, and I pet cat. I pet-
That is
Monkey.
under the Service Dog Act. So
Yeah,
I think there's one for rabbits or
I guess that's the point.
things about.
It's safe this time.
Yeah.
But that could change.
Well, I think a lot through your worship is liability too.
Yeah.
Like, if we're not going to, we're not able to ask for a card, or the dog does not have its tag on that it's supposed to have on, and you refuse it, you say there could be a human rights challenge. But I think if we're going to allow it in our policy that the person that has that dog would take full responsibility and no liability on the town. Because there's a lot of people that are scared of dogs. And I own quite a few dogs. And at any time, a dog can bite someone. It doesn't matter if it's a service dog or not. If something happens or whatever, you're in a public building. And I don't want any, I don't think the town should carry any liability by saying, yes, you can bring your dog, whether it's a service dog or not. The liability has to lie with the owner.
They're not muzzled service dogs.
A lot of them are. So I think that's something we should put in our policy.
No, absolutely. Councilor Corey, did you have any comments?
I just comment on the deputy mayor about the dogs, service dogs not necessarily being muzzled.
Sure. So I guess we have a little bit more homework to do. And thank you, Councilor Point, for bringing this forward. I've heard a few comments too over the past couple of days. One from somebody who's petrified of dogs. So we definitely will give it full consideration. Councilor McIver, your comment around liability is a good one. We want to make sure that we're following best practice in terms of what other municipalities are doing. Also making sure that we're not leaving ourselves wide open to any human rights complaints like Gordy had mentioned. So, and we currently do not have it in our policy, correct, Gordy? So that's something that we're going to have to work on. And once we have it adopted in policy, then that gives the power to staff to be able to, I guess, do what they can to monitor or at least give information to citizens who may be interested in coming in with a service animal. Okay, Terry, did you want to?
Well, no, I was just going to say, no, it's not in policy, but we're subject to law. So, which is all up, we don't need that policy. It'd be great to clarify
Yeah,
for the public as to what that is and give
absolutely,
information around that.
absolutely.
And
So,
we will certainly do that.
so is council okay with we'll add that as an item at our next meeting?
Sure.
And I know it's only two-ish weeks away, but we'll continue the conversation. If we need a little bit more time, then we can push it to committee.
Sure,
Any-
your worship, through you to Gordy, if Gordy, you might just reiterate what you explained in an email in terms of what the practice has been after the Civic Center opened in 2004 to
Yeah,
2013.
my knowledge, through your worship, council, when we opened in 04, we never even had a sign on the door saying service animals. It's just, and we never really had a lot of issues with any animals in the service animal. I think maybe people are just respectful of certain places, whether it's public or not. And I think it was 2012 or 2013, that sign was added to the door, restricted. So it's just service animal. And even since then, there hasn't been, it just seems since COVID opened up, prior to Christmas, in the last few weeks, that everybody's traveling more, doing stuff more outside and trying to endure the separation anxiety of being home for 2 years and then I'm gone. But whatever it is, there seems to be a lot more people wanting. And that's what's happening in the facilities, the 7 facilities I checked with across the province, excuse me, they're saying the same thing. They're kind of shaking their head, why all these animals coming down. It's seems to be a trend,
Mhm.
you know, and it is, like when you go to a business or even some restaurants, yeah. You're welcome to take your animal inside.
Gary mentioned downtown Halifax, like all along the boardwalk, it's dogs welcome, dogs welcome, dogs welcome. Anyway, so I guess we'll continue that conversation so that we can get some clarity and then put something into policy. Anything else on that item?
No, that's good, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on then to our last edition, which is municipal budget public consultation. So Councilor McCory, you added that, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just like to make a motion that council, we would arrange to have at least 2 public sessions for residents to come out and express their priorities and concerns, whatever, for us to take into consideration for our budget deliberations this winter. And so that was my motion, that we would have 2 public meetings.
Seconded.
Okay, so the motion has been moved and seconded. So I would certainly have some questions, but first we'll go to the deputy mayor for his question. Okay, well, go ahead.
All our meetings are public. I don't understand what you mean by, you want to have, what you're getting at. I don't understand the motion, I guess.
Okay, so I guess the motion, what I'm getting at is what I circulated here tonight. And this is an advertisement that HRM puts out for their budget. And I didn't look at how many actual consultations that they have, but rather than people coming in as part of, which it's open, it's public, right? As you're saying, anybody can come into the budget meeting. But this exercise is to give the residents an opportunity just to raise their concerns and identify what they think,
To ask,
to pass it on, to relay it to council,
pass on how we want to spend our money.
how the residents feel, what they're, for them to have the opportunity to identify their priorities.
Right.
We haven't done it before, as far as I know.
Well, I think that's why we're elected, I think.
Sure we are.
That's why if they want to call you up, you represent them. If we have everybody in town coming and saying they want this and that.
No,
They should put their name on the ballot.
sure. I think it's an issue for, it's just about transparency, I guess. That's what I'm thinking. And it's just to give the residents an opportunity to have their contribution. And so anyhow, that's out there for councils.
So I do have a question through your worship to Councilor McCory. I guess my first question is who facilitates these consultations? And the second is, are all of council required to be there?
So who would facilitate it?
Yes.
And if all of council would be required to be there, I think that's a decision we would have to make. I'm simply going by something that caught my eye last week in the Herald, and I wanted to bring it forward. There's information, we could find out exactly how the HRM deals with that and those issues. So, to do a little bit of homework.
I feel I would need some more information before I could form an opinion or a vote on this.
Yes, Your Worship, through you. I don't see any problem with having it. I think that maybe we never did it before. But it might be interesting to listen to the residents. Maybe we're doing it all right. Maybe they have other priorities that they think that council should be spending money on and putting into their operating and capital budgets. And that's who we work for. So I don't think it would hurt to try it, just to, I mean, we might learn something from it.
I just, I'll for transparency also, but I'm just, I guess I'm missing the whole point here. But the asterisk here says access to a full list of meetings and dates and times are available. We do that, don't we? All our budget meetings are advertised. If we want to open up, see how many people are going to come to the civic center and tell us what they want to spend their money on, I guess that's what we're going to do.
The Deputy Mayor, what I see in that is what these meetings are, these are the public consultation meetings, and that you can go online and you can find out the dates that they have set for these public meetings. It's not for their budget meeting, but it's for the public meetings. That's my understanding.
Go ahead, Terry.
Just maybe, so I didn't mean to.
You first, Councillor Quinn, and then Terry.
So if you look at this advertisement.
Yeah.
Each year residents have the opportunity to speak directly to regional council about their budget priorities. So, and you have to register to do so. So couldn't somebody just register, like we list all of our budget meetings. They could register through Melissa to want to speak at those budget meetings.
We could do something similar like we do for our
'Cause that-
council.
What I'm seeing here, and maybe I'm misreading it, but what I'm seeing here is not a public consultation. It's, to me, I'm interpreting this by, at the budget meetings, you can come in and register and speak at it, but maybe I'm wrong.
My interpretation is that these are public consultation meetings, Councillor Coyne, but it's my interpretation.
It does say
Yeah, it's about,
registered speakers and non-registered speakers will also have the opportunity. It's an open forum type of. Like after the registered speakers speak, they will ask if there was anyone there that has any questions or comments. They'll have the opportunity to speak to, whether they're registered or not.
It was a bubble. Councillor McIver, you did over 20 of these, and I did over 20 of these budgets. Anytime a citizen came and asked a question, wanted to know something, they were
Oh,
answered. They could ask all the questions they wanted. I just wanted to say this just goes above and beyond, I guess, our normal budget deliberations. As long as I have it in my head.
Yes, as I said through you, Your worship. We never done this before, and maybe we might learn something from it. If we might have a lot of people come up and speak. We might be doing it right with one person. Wouldn't hurt to try.
Terry?
I was just going to suggest that we bring back a recommendation. It's something that we don't do, but many municipalities do, is a more formalized public consultation process. And so it's certainly not, although we haven't done it here, many municipalities do it. I mean, our budgetary meetings are not meant to be interactive. They're meant for it's council deliberation. And there's no room, there's no formal room for somebody to speak to that. It's not like our monthly public meetings. There's nothing on the agenda for that. But, and I know we've accommodated that in the past, and that's good. So, but there is other models here that might bring a little more consultation. I think it's really important that they have to be structured well. So there has to be information passed on to them. This is where we're at, kind of thing. And this is what council is considering. And then it gives an opportunity for the public, if they wish to have a say. I don't know that there's a need for two. I don't know that there's, that. But I'm sure Aaron wants to weigh this.
Yeah, I just, I don't have, I think it's a good suggestion. I think it might be nice. I think early on when we're talking about priorities and talking about the areas we want to focus, when we try to kind of scope out what council's considerations are, I wonder if we could blend in a part of that meeting to allow for registered. I think that's a good idea to get an understanding of who's coming and what they're going to be speaking about and how long they can speak, because we don't want to have an open 5-hour meeting maybe on this. So maybe if we knew exactly how many speakers and had a timeline, we could structure that in with kind of some of our preliminary scoping meetings that we have with council. It might be a good blended use of that meeting. But if the preference of council is to have separate, completely separate, community-driven meetings, and that's fine too. I just, and maybe depending on the level of interest we get from registered speakers, we can say that maybe it is something that we want to focus just one specific meeting on or two specific meetings on. So,
Yeah, if there's lots, if we're oversubscribed, maybe that pushes us into 2 meetings, and if we're undersubscribed, 1 may suffice.
yeah, and I think we typically look at kind of high level, what our current financial pressures are, what our revenue opportunities are. We go kind of through departments and what their priorities are, council's priorities, and so maybe in a couple of those early on scoping meetings and planning meetings, we could integrate a better collaborative community engagement piece into those meetings. Yeah, if that works, but I'll look for discussion, please.
And maybe also an opportunity to give some information to citizens who may not understand a municipal budget.
Your worship, through you again,
Over to you.
I'm all for transparency, but you're opening a kettle of fish here. Let me tell you. You get 4 or 5 people that want to come to one of these meetings, and they're the loudest 5 people in Hawkesbury, and they're gonna, we got most of them here now.
Self-proclaimed.
But I'm just gonna tell you, they're gonna be pointing you in the wrong direction. But anyway, just food for thought. I think there's gotta be a lot of thought put into this.
Sure.
So
Councillor
through you,
Klein.
your worship, to kind of echo Councilor McDougall's comment, or sorry, Deputy Mayor McDougall's comments, is maybe we should, before we try to pass any motion, maybe we should set some ground rules and,
Have some options.
yeah, I'm not against it, but I'd just like to know how it's going to be structured and how much time people are going to be, and how many people we're going to allow to speak.
What it looks like.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess we do have a motion that has been put forward by Councilor McCrory. It has been seconded by Councilor McIver. Is it the wishes of council to table the motion to our next meeting so that we can have further information and debate?
If we could table this to the committee of whole, if that's okay with council, because I won't be here at the next council meeting.
For discussion.
For discussion. Yeah, if that's the wishes of council.
You're not here the next meeting?
No.
Okay, we'll discuss it then.
We should do it there.
Okay, so is everybody in acceptance of tabling it to a future meeting?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, so that concludes our additions. In terms of future meetings, we do have a public meeting of council, February 7th, followed by committee of the whole, February 21st. At this time, I would ask if any members of our public, either participating virtually or here in person, may have any questions with regard to any of our agenda items. Happy to take your questions. All you would need to do, if you're participating virtually, you're welcome to unmute and identify yourself and ask your question if you'd like. Okay. All right, so hearing no questions at this time, I would ask for council to consider a motion of adjournment.
Moved.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded,
Okay.
meeting's adjourned. Have a lovely evening, everyone.
Gas going up 6 cents tonight, by the way.